And there we go. So now I can go back here and I can do this and I can kill that because I can kill. Maybe I can't kill that because I'm looking not to kill that. Fair enough. On video, I was in the chat of time, Terran residence. Seems like a reasonable response. And there we go. Oops, pause. There we are. Much better. All right, so let's get everything going here. Make sure everyone knows what's going on. I wish I could actually point it over there, but I can't, so that's okay. Oh. No viewers, that's good. Yes, hands. Let's see. So we're doing license check. Is there anything else I could do? I don't know why I'm looking for more stuff to do. Maybe we'll do some cooking. I'm certainly interested in doing that. But we shall have to see. Meantime, what could I do? What could I do? I could do something fun and anime-like. Oh, we're done. Excellent. So we can take care of that. Let's see here. Very well. And then we will have to cancel that or turn that off. Un-PLA. Nice when a plan comes together. There. Good, good, good. There's a 3D printed car part. Now, yeah. Oh, that's not going to work. So that's interesting. Clients. 50% PLA. That can't possibly work because that's not even. Oh, now it says it is. That's rather bizarre. Huh. How can that possibly work? It's not even. It's just not going to work. All right, well, I've learned a little something then. Then 5, center, drop. Yeah, that's how it's going to be. That's something I knew I've learned. heck? What kind of silliness is that? Oh, that's interesting. Added some support. I don't remember asking for support. Sure. But that would certainly help. Yeah, let's give it a try. And we'll go over here. 50%. We're going to have to kill that. And then we're going to have to load in. That's cute. Load in the new 50%. Yeah, the new 50%. That is the way it is. Let's get that nice and stirred. And get it where it belongs, over here on the hot plate. Add something to cool it down a bit so it's actually cool and adjustable and okay. And then in a few minutes we will go live. I'm surprised no one's shown up yet. Although, of course, given our tendency to not go live early, it's not awesome. Nobody here. That's surprising. And there's the alarm. Man, it's been one alarm after another. One alarm after another. Nobody home. Peeps taste test challenge. We'll wait a few moments for folks to show up. Wow, that's awful loud. And anime fans continue to be weird, although that's actually an anime illustrator who's talking all about the absolute zone for ponytails. Weird. Weird. If there's any more talk about Mad Max out there. Let's see here. Mad Max Adventure Time thing, but I think I tweeted that. Yep. and various weird stuff. One guy's complaining about the font choice in Mad Max. Okay. The whole thing about the centering of there. Feminism, which is silly. As Adam Savage said, Mad Max simply does not fall into the tropes. Oh, was I just not seeing recent stuff? Ooh, nice. Yep. Let's retweet that as well. Good. Probably do an Ant-Man thing. Geeks search Spectrum. Add that stream. See what folks are talking about. Going in there. Which? Yeah, let's not do that one. Cool. All right. I got a viewer. Hey, Liquidus. Yeah. It's kind of embarrassing. It used to be that I would start the stream way early, and so folks were all here well before we started the show. But with the problems we've been having back at Evan's underground bunker, not so much. So folks are expecting us to be late, unfortunately. So let me start early, or not start. It's actually 5 after. So let me get started with the show. But glad you're here, Liquidus, or Liquid, or whatever. And let's start that. So let me switch over to the thing. Good. All right. And starting in 3, 2. Welcome to License Check for May 2015. This is a look at the anime licensed for North American and UK release for May 2015 in this case, and in today's case. So let's just jump right on over to it, shall we? So let's see here. I say that, but I don't have my thing up and show. There we are. So first off, as we mentioned in our news show, Funimation has licensed The Boy and the Beast which is Mamoru Hosoda's latest film. Mamoru is a little hard to pronounce. So Funimation will be licensing, has licensed that, will release it in North America on DVD and Blu-ray. Meanwhile, Sentai Filmworks has announced a license for, and I think this I can actually, nothing is cooperating with me today. Let's try, there we go, switch over to that. So they've licensed Bakemono, well actually I'm sorry, wow, nothing is happy with me today. So there's The Boy and the Beast. We've also, so that's for Funimation. You know what, let me start this again. This was just a complete fail in terms of this show. And that doesn't even want to work either. So I'm going to start this all over again. And hopefully this time, everything will be happy. All right? All right. So starting the show in 3, 2. And welcome back to License Check. Actually, it's not welcome back either. 3, 2. Welcome to License Check for May 2015. This is the show where we look at the anime series and movies that were licensed for North American and UK release in this case, May of 2015. So let's get started. And we're starting with Funimation's license of The Boy and the Beast. There we go. Wow. So this is the latest movie by Mamoru Hosoda, which should be out soon on DVD and Blu-ray in North America. Also licensed by Sentai Filmworks this month was Punchline. This is a recent TV series about a boy who faints whenever he sees a girl's panties, and this causes, of course, all sorts of problems. Also licensed Triage X, which is a very shonen-y, over-the-top 10-episode TV series, which aired in April of this year. Also licensed was Ore Monogatari, aka My Love Story, a shoujo story that premiered in April of this year. And finally, Sentai Filmworks also licensed Hamatora the Animation, a very shonen-y action series, 12-episode TV series that started back in January of 2014, so last year, but that one is coming out in North America from Sentai. Meanwhile, NIS America has licensed Kotoro-san, which is a school comedy about a 15-year-old girl who is a mind reader, but this causes her no end of trouble. So she has to attend school and deal with that, but other people start to see her and sort of reach out to her and accept her, which is rather nice. So that's all the anime licensed in North America. Moving on to the United Kingdom, and a lot of licenses in the UK this month, starting with Animatsu, who licensed Black Bullet, which was a 13-episode TV series from last year, as well as Golden Time, which is, let me see here, a series from 2013, actually. Looks like an action-y series. Not quite sure there. Let's see, what does it say? Comedy romance, I'm sorry, so romance series. Also licensed Parasite the Maximum, Knights of Sidonia, as well as a certain magical index and a certain scientific railgun, which is kind of nice that the UK will finally be getting those. Also, Triage X, the previously mentioned series. So that's all Animatsu's licensed. Meanwhile, Anime Limited has licensed, see here, not that, Plastic Memories, which is a sci-fi series from a 13-episode series from this year. Also licensed Aldnoah Zero first and second seasons, as well as Durarara X2 Show. And do I have Aldnoah? Yes, Aldnoah Mecha series from this year. Durarara and Fuse Teppo Musume no Torimonocho. That's a hard one. Let me try that again. Fuse or Fuse Teppo Musume no Torimonocho, roughly speaking. This is an adaptation of the Hakenden which has been adapted several times already into anime. It's a movie, so licensed nicely by Anime Limited. They also licensed Sword Art Online 2, which I think pretty much everyone here is familiar with, so you don't need to throw up any screenshots of that. Also licensed by Manga Entertainment. I say there are a lot of these. Terraformers, which is a recent sci-fi series, and Flower of Evil, Akunohana. Samurai Harem, also known as Asuno Yuichi. I've seen this series. It's a lot of fun. It's sort of a harem series crossed with a samurai shonen series. So you think of Tenchi Muyo crossed with Rurouni Kenshin. Fun little series. Also, Buso Shinki Armored Warrior Goddess, which is a girls as mecha kind of a series, so sort of a Strike Witches sort of a concept, but more sci-fi, more straight up sci-fi. As well as Captain Earth, recent mecha series. So I Can't Play H, Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, second season, Hidamari Sketch. These are all by. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. I completely got these wrong. So I'm sorry. So Manga Entertainment licensed Terraformers, Noragami, which I think I have Noragami up here. Noragami is wow, I got those completely switched around. Sorry, guys. So Noragami is a 12-episode TV series recently about a god who kind of reaches out to some local people. This aired back in January of this year. They also licensed Dragon Ball Z Movie 15, Fukatsu no F, or Resurrection F, and the 3 Madoka Magica movies. So those are all by Manga Entertainment. Moving on to MVM Entertainment. There we go. Licensed Amnesia, Flower of Evil, Samurai Harem, Buso Shinki Armored War Goddess, Captain Earth, recent mecha series, So I Can't Play H, Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, second season, Hidamari Sketch, Kaicho wa Maid-sama, Kami-sama Hajimemashita, second season, Kill Me Baby, Love, Election, and Chocolate, Camphor for the Liebe, Love Live School Idol Project first and second seasons, Nyankoi Outbreak Company, Photokano, Recon, Rosen Maiden 2013, and Sasami-san Ganbaranai. So that's quite the list of licenses from MVM Entertainment. So yeah, quite a lot coming to the UK, and a few things licensed in the US, but not nearly as much as last month. That's because, of course, we got the beginning of a season last month. So a bunch of stuff got simulcast and licensed last month. So that is the licenses for this month. Thank you all for watching. All right, that's that. Yeah, the anime shelf problem last time. Exactly, Liquid. Yeah, we've been trying to. So the backstory on that is that we have basically 3 computers that we can use for live streaming at Evan's place. One is Evan's laptop that's all set up, but is slow for live streaming. It's good at other stuff, but just it's not really a good live streaming solution. This laptop, but we use this laptop to play back the movies and to watch the chat room. And again, it's something that laptop isn't really very happy with. And then he also has a desktop in the corner, which is an older computer and needs some upgrades. So we actually upgraded the RAM in that this past week, and that should give it some real heftiness. So we're looking forward to trying that out this Friday. We're going to try to stream from that. So basically every week we tried a different configuration of those, of either laptop or the desktop, and something goes wrong every time. So hopefully that desktop will become the solid, this is how it works kind of a solution, and we'll see how that goes. So it's been, oh, that's not good. Ooh, accidentally broke off my little thing. So this is the fun thing. So I've been playing around with this. This is a car part requested by someone local. He wants to try to 3D print a car part for his car. This is a miniature version of the part. So I'm trying to see if the part can actually be 3D printed. It'd be kind of cool if that is even possible. So playing around with different orientations on the printer and different things. It'll end up being about 4 times the size of this, but should be printable. So playing around with that this week. Anyway, hello, Mohammed. Malaysia, that's awesome. Hello from the US. Does Europe sometimes get their licensed anime that late? Yes, they do. The UK is even slower than the US to get licensed stuff, and part of that is because they're on the exact other side of the world from Japan. So it is harder for them to license stuff because when they're asleep, Japan is awake. So there's kind of that delay. But also just generally, it's a smaller market. So there's just not that, they don't have a lot of money to throw around, generally speaking. So the UK just isn't going to, command that kind of first run attention that America will. I am not familiar. Momocon Toonami. Not familiar with the announcement at Momocon. Unfortunately, all I'm finding are links to the panel. Let me pull up the Otaku USA stuff. New Total Immersion event. That's cool. New shows will be coming. Oh yeah, Michiko and Hatchin, Akiyama ga Kill rather. And a mobile app. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm not too. I'm very curious to see how Michiko will work for them, because that's this kind of series that came out over here with a lot of initial fanfare and then just died. Like nobody watched Michiko. And I watched the first episode and I liked what I saw. Oh well. So yeah, so Toonami is doing another thing. There'll be a Toonami app. Wonder what that will do. Oh, the IGPX. There'll be an IGPX re-release with the remastered edition of the cut in anamorphic widescreen. Interesting. I will say I'm glad they're replacing Kill la Kill. And yes, Lakutis, the boy in the, what was it? The boy and the monster, the boy and the that. What are they calling it? The Boy and the Beast. Yes, that's by the guy who did Summer Wars and Wolf Children. Exactly. Oh, gotcha. I didn't know it was a Sentai show that Akigame ga Kill. It's interesting. Makes sense. I mean, it's cool, and that is a seems like a good choice for them. Actiony, aimed at kind of a young teen, tween audience really is what Toonami aims for. Tween and young teen, roughly. So that's cool. I think I downloaded some Akigame ga Kill back in the day. Ga is hard to Akame ga Kill, hard to pronounce. It's streaming on Crunchyroll, so that's cool. You sure this is a Sentai show? Doesn't look like it from the descriptions. Oh, by Sentai show, do you mean Sentai Filmworks? Or something like that. It was licensed by Sentai Filmworks. So I'm assuming you don't mean it's a Super Sentai series. Oh, Sentai Filmworks, not Super Sentai. Okay, that explains it. That's well, I think that they're all possible. Again, it's the classic issue of, is it going to be appropriate for their audience? How much editing will they have to do? All that fun stuff. You know, some things are easier and harder to sell, frankly, to bring in an audience. Like, it's not sell so much. You know, TV doesn't quite work that way. So yeah, but I mean, Toonami's always been open to deals with various companies. They've always kind of said, you know, we'll work with anyone who's willing to work with us. So it's good to see that they're willing to deal with that and hopefully get as many people in as possible, or as many anime series as possible. You know, the difficulty is, I would say, the anime fandom is not really aimed at what Toonami does these days. You know, anime fandom goes crazy over some things, but there's not that much shonen right now in anime. There are a couple of big shows. There's the Naruto and such, Kill la Kill. But there's not quite the large amount that there was back in the 90s. So one of the problems I think Cartoon Network and Toonami had back when they kind of petered out was, and one of the reasons they did IGPX, is there wasn't actually all that much anime that they could kind of plunder, if you will. And there were a lot of series that, I mean, were shonen, but they knew just were not going to appeal to the average, you know, 12-year-old American kid. A lot of the Super Robot shows, the Gao Gai Gar kind of series, it's just, that's a very, that is sufficiently Japanese, if you will. You know, it kind of requires a certain appreciation of giant robots that just isn't here yet, or certainly was not here, let's say, prior to Pacific Rim. Maybe now that we have Pacific Rim and those other sort of giant robot shows that have gotten that kind of thing out there, maybe now you could do like a Super Robot show, like a Gao Gai Gar. But it is, you know, it's tough finding things that really fit. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to buy that. But what is that? So I just got a notification. I'm actually playing around with a thing. They notice I just glanced down. So yeah, I mean, I'm that much of a geek. And it's actually pretty effective. You know, it's kind of like glass. It's a neat, useful thing. It's certainly not revolutionary or amazing, but it is very handy to have a little thing on your wrist. So, for example, for that, it was a really cool model kit. Is, see if I can actually focus on that. See how close I can get. No, it doesn't want to. Interesting how cameras just don't like focusing on large chunks of light. Oh well. Anyway, it's a model kit for a very cool mecha that I happened to see on eBay, but I'm just not gonna buy it. It's the, see here, Mach-E. So I think that is, am I getting that better? It's one of these mecha that's from a weird Japanese illustration universe where this guy would just sort of paint mecha and military machines and release those illustrations in some military magazine or a sci-fi magazine, and then he built his own universe and folks started making model kits out of that. But you're right, Liquidus. I mean, Toonami does have a they're in a unique situation and it's one of the reasons why people get a little confused about what Toonami can or can't do. I mean, I think you guys all have a good handle on it, but you come across fans at conventions and stuff who think that Toonami is just a license to show anything exactly that they could possibly show on television. It's like, oh great, now they're going to show Vampire Hunter D. It's like, no, they're not going to show Vampire Hunter D. So there are they're now at a point where they can show some anime, because I think anime is now well known enough that it's an easier sell than it was back in the 90s. In the early 2000s, where Pokemon was there, and people were becoming aware of what anime was, but it hadn't hit that penetration yet. Now we've had enough time; everyone's aware of what anime is, and so you can show things like Sword Art Online or Kill la Kill, and people will just say, "Oh, it's that Japanese animation thing." It's not quite the what the heck. I do not like Kill la Kill, 14th Angel, but also I think, regardless of my feelings, I think Kill la Kill is a very controversial show to put on primetime television. It's a great opportunity to say bad things for other people to see that and complain that anime is all TNA. I don't think we need more controversy that anime is full of sexy half-clad girls, and then it's all fan service. And I went through this back in the early days when there was a lot of prejudice against anime, because what was being brought over and shown tended to be the sexier stuff, and it formed a lot of resistance to anime. And it meant a lot of kids couldn't see anime because their parents were seeing the half-clad girls on television. They're like, no. So I think Kill la Kill is just a problematic choice for a primetime broadcast. Again, if you want to watch it, that's great. If you like it, that's awesome. But as as kind of this, Toonami is this sort of public vehicle for anime. There are lots of other anime I think that it would be much better for them to show. There would be a more helpful display of anime. Heck, show Gundam Unicorn. I mean, it's beautiful. It's well animated. It has the Gundam connection that Toonami has. Gundam showed Mobile Suit Gundam back in the day. So anyway, hey, 14th Angel, glad to see you. I'm assuming that's a reference to Evangelion, because it seems so much of anime is. That's another thing I should do. One second. I'm actually setting up some searches. So I can be more aware of what's actually going on. But yeah, and Toonami's in a tough position. They are kind of a vanguard for anime. Established anime fandom wants them to show awesome stuff. Their Cartoon Network audience wants to show them stuff that's going to work for a Cartoon Network audience. So they're not looking at, so in other words, the folks who tune into Cartoon Network outside of Toonami and may then watch Toonami are probably not there because they want edgy Japanese entertainment. They want stuff that at least they have some conception of and understanding of. So that's kind of a tough one. Right. And there's, there needs to be space for everyone. I think one of the great things that Toonami did back in the day was they would show a lot of kid-friendly shows. Or by kid-friendly, I mean shows aimed at that younger audience. Shoot. Again. So you'd get stuff like Ronin Warriors and Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z, as opposed to like Ghost in the Shell, for example. And sorry, I'm having some problems with my automatic lighting system here again. May have to reinstall. So yeah, that's kind of a problem when there's just not that much you can actually be aware of and deal with. Let's try, whoops. Let's try that. It's going to require that I go in there, isn't it? Probably. Yep. 1 second, guys. That's done. Done. Connect. So, I mean, back in the day, Cartoon Network was kind of this variety of stuff. So it was both kid-oriented stuff and some of the more edgy, like Gundam Wing stuff. So you could get in the kids who would watch the more Johnny Quest kind of material. And now it's a different world. Then, of course, a lot of the folks who are tuning into Toonami are tuning in because they are they remember the old Toonami, so they want that kind of. They want Gundam Wing. They want that crazy stuff. But and speaking of mecha, I mean, lest we forget that Toonami did their week of mecha thing where all week, 1 week, they would show 2 episodes of mecha anime back to back from 2 different shows. They went through 10 different mecha anime series over the course of the week. And then they paid very close attention to those numbers. And it did not do well. Some of them were successful, some more than others. But like Robotech, nobody tuned in to watch Robotech, which shocked them. So it's not, some things just don't really get that kind of attention from the average American Cartoon Network watcher. It's difficult. I don't know. I mean, do you guys? We've got some international folks here, but there's a lot of. So here's a question. Internationally, have you guys seen any sort of anime blocks in your countries? So, for example, Muhammad, has Malaysia had any? Programming blocks in certain, channels that were not, where the channel was not devoted to anime, but they had an hour or 2 set aside just for anime over the course of the week. That would be interesting to see if that kind of thing has been done in other countries as well. Part of the reason they did Toonami is that anime was getting relatively popular and the stuff was relatively cheap to license. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, a lot of kids watching Dragon Ball Z back in the day would have, back in the days of Toonami, would not have realized that the show had came out, 10 years before that. No, that is true, 14th, that Toonami, well, and also, I mean, Toonami kind of rebuilt itself. Originally, Toonami, the whole idea of Toonami is that it was the Saturday or the weekday afternoon cartoon block, as it used to be. And then Adult Swim was created as this home for the more adult shows. And then Toonami disappeared, and Adult Swim kind of got reworked over time. And then Toonami has been reborn as this space for anime within Cartoon Network. It's kind of weirdly allied with Adult Swim. So, so it's different than it was before, which is one of the things that makes it interesting. Like you said. And yet, then what's also interesting too is that Toonami is doing something now that's different than it was before. It used to be Toonami would keep all those shows in rotation. So you'd see Gundam Wing, several times in a row, whereas now they'll bring on Dead Man Wonderland and then it's gone, or they'll bring on Kill la Kill and then it's gone. So there's a much higher churn rate these days, and I think that also does give them a little more license to show edgier stuff because they got to fill in that airtime. Excuse me. Been having some sleep problems lately. Well, the other thing possible, Liquidus, is that kid may have, maybe his father watched Dragon Ball Z back in the day, or he had heard about it or something. I mean, 2000, 2002, the internet was around. So maybe he had an older sibling who had watched Dragon Ball Z on the local affiliate back in 1992, and then passed it down to him, or the older sibling looked it up on the net or something. Who knows? That's interesting though. I mean, 2000, 2002, there would have been a fair amount of material online about Dragon Ball Z, at least. Not so much everything else, but, I mean, late 90s, you started seeing a significant and reasonable amount of anime material online. Not much, but, Wikipedia was starting to get some of its stuff together, as I recall, in the late 90s. So, hey, Masa, good to see you. Yeah, we're all just chatting about Toonami, actually, and what's going on there. Not that it's too much, but it's so frustrating. So I have these light bulbs that are all on a timer using an app. And unfortunately, the app now cannot see the router thing. So I cannot actually update the lamps, and now they're all, switching out. Oh, now I can find it. It is an EVA reference. Excellent. I still have my geek cred, my anime geek cred, which some days I feel like there's just so much going on that I just cannot keep track of what's out there. One of these days I'll just sit down with Crunchyroll and just start watching stuff so I can at least know what I'm talking about for some of these things. I think that's one of one of the most useful ways of understanding anime is to just watch a bunch of stuff, spend an evening. There we go. Spend an evening, watching half a dozen shows that are airing right now, just episode 1. And then at least you know what you're talking about. At least you've seen some chunk of it. So I'm sorry, folks were asking. This is the Moto 360. It's the circular watch. I have a moon face on it, which is just a moon face. I mean, there's no phase of the moon to it. I just like the way it looks. And folks have been, negative about it, but I like it. I think it works nicely. The reason I could afford it actually is that I went by a Radio Shack that was going out of business. So they're kind of consolidating their stores and putting some of their stores are closing. And so they're doing a fire sale. So this was half off. I was like, yeah, willing to do that. I got you, Liquidus. So yeah, so the internet hadn't really penetrated by that point. That makes sense. Yeah, and folks are getting their DVD and Blu-ray releases. And boy, the Hollywood's going to have issues at some point because they want people to keep on upgrading their libraries to the latest and greatest things. And I don't think there are that many people who are willing to rebuy their entire library in Blu-ray. Not to mention the fact that a lot of content out there does not look that much mind-blowingly better in Blu-ray that it's worth spending, $23 for a new version. Folks are like, I can watch this on DVD, maybe I will never even watch it again. So gotcha, Masa. That's interesting. Yeah, I first got online around 1995. So back then it was the computer, the web existed, but it was mostly text with a few images here and there, but images would really hog a web page. So you didn't really see much in the way of multimedia, a few graphics here and there, but it was still, it had moved beyond the purely academic world, but it was still almost, there were basically no businesses online. It was educational and personal pages. Yeah, they want folks to upgrade to 4K and all that stuff, and I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of that content is going to be produced and made available streaming. And so I think streaming will become a thing, and I think digital files will become a thing. And maybe someday, eventually, folks will figure out that people actually want to download the file itself and not just have access to a stream. Or a lot of people do. But yeah, I don't see that. Oh, that makes sense, actually, 14th. I mean, Gundam would be an expensive license. And I'm sure that Sunrise has kind of moved past the idea of using Toonami as their main entry point into North American fandom. Plus the fact that, I mean, I'm sure with the worldwide release of Unicorn, licensing rights for that for television distribution would be complicated. But who knows? Hey, that's cool, Liquidus. I have a VHS DVD combo downstairs right now. I actually need to at some point pull some stuff off some VHS tapes for that. I only have that stuff on VHS, and I'm like, and there was no DVD release, so I need to pull them off VHS. So, fortunately, I have to do the same thing for a bunch of the anime I was digitizing. I lost all that stuff, so unless I'm willing to spend like $90 on a thing. Thanks, Masa. By the way, Smoke and Mirrors will be on Friday, as a reminder to everybody. So, thank you for tuning in, Masa. Yeah, and then that's one of the problems is that, you know, the jump from nothing to VHS was massive. The fact you would actually own a copy of The Land Before Time or what have you. And then the video quality from VHS to DVD was so massive. Not to mention the idea that the video kind of didn't degrade. I mean, the DVDs do get scratched up and they don't last forever. But yeah. Yes, that's correct, Masa. In fact, if you see me here, that is your hint that there's not going to be a Smoke and Mirrors because I'm not at Evans. This is my personal spot. So but yeah, so VHS to DVD was huge. And DVD to Blu-ray is certainly better, but DVD looks good for a lot of things. And it's a lot of folks don't realize that many people are perfectly content with, well, a lot of people aren't actually going to go back and watch a lot of those things they bought on DVD. Like, folks are realizing that we're not going to get, you know, we don't need to own super high quality versions of every single thing we've ever watched. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff on DVD, and if we ever watch it again, well then okay, we'll pop in the DVD, and yes, it won't be as nice as the Blu-ray, but do we really need that? So, oh no, DVDs did pan and scan. There was plenty of pan and scan on DVDs. And there was widescreen on VHS as well. So that's not quite true. You know, VHS did not support widescreen as well, but there were certainly VHS tapes that were in widescreen. My parents have quite a few actually still. But then there were a lot of DVD releases that were still pan and scan. They just transferred that over. So. Well, 00 might be a good pick. The issue there, 14th Angel, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm kind of trying to think it through. The main issue with Gundam always is that, you know, in terms of getting people into Gundam, the problem with the alternate timelines inevitably is that folks get into an alternate timeline, then they stop. Because you get into 00, okay, great. You only have 50 episodes of that in the movie, and then they stop, and now they have to get into Universal Century. Are they going to do that? Like, getting into 00 doesn't mean they're going to like Universal Century. So they've had that issue with Gundam Wing back in the day, where folks love Gundam Wing and they watched Mobile Suit Gundam and were like, no. So at some point, you got to get folks into the mainline UC to make them Gundam fans, in the sense that Sunrise wants people to be Gundam fans, you know, fans of the entire franchise. So I think you're going to have to at some point find a flashy Gundam. 8th MS certainly did pretty well on Toonami, but it's short, so that's a problem. Unicorn also is not that huge, so it's tough. There's really no way to start. It's why they wanted to remake Mobile Suit Gundam, and maybe they will at some point. I doubt it. Now they're doing the Origin, though. I mean, Origin kind of was their desire for that. Well, Blu-ray does not fix the problem of scratching. Blu-ray helps the problem of scratching. Now, I got Blu-rays in there that are starting to not look great in terms of scratch stuff. But you know, you're certainly right, Masa, that at the very least, DVDs were a big step in the right direction of widescreen or something. Now you could get widescreen, and of course DVDs were transformational for anime because now you could get both sub and dub, and that healed a huge rift in fandom. And by rift in fandom, I mean literally there were people who would not talk to each other. It created a really serious and significant problem because people would divide into these camps, and suddenly you couldn't go to that fan club. You know, you couldn't go to that anime club because you had at one point mentioned that you like dubs, and so they would now shun you, or vice versa. So. You know, it's a real, you know, now at least if you prefer one or the other, you can say that, and folks will be like, you know, I disagree and you're stupid. But that's now your personal fetish, as opposed to kind of what places you in one of these two pitchfork and knife wielding camps. Yeah, DVDs were really good, and of course the higher quality you get from a DVD just generally. But we're gonna have to move to files. I mean, let's be honest, digital storage is just the future. So we need to start on that at some point. What I'm gonna end up doing probably is ripping a bunch of my DVDs and then also finding some of them online and downloading, you know, torrents of a bunch of them. You know, again, just the stuff I owned or I own, but I'll just have to pull a bunch of those in. And then store them locally so that if bad things happen, I at least have them sitting on a reasonable storage location. So, what you gonna do? But yeah, so Blu-ray certainly helps. It's certainly an improvement on what we had before. Like you said, the scratch resistant coating helps. But yeah, there's going to be all sorts of issues that will that make physical storage media a problem. That kind of physical storage medium, I think, honestly, drives are the way to go. With, you know, redundancy. So if one fails, you have backups other places. We just got to rip them all and find the storage space. But storage space is getting so cheap. You know, you can get a 3 terabyte drive for like $100 now. So that's a lot of anime that you can just throw on that drive. And of course, also the display technology has gotten better. You know, we've got these huge screens that are more accurately color corrected. So you can actually see that detail. It was one of the funny things is folks would upgrade to DVD. You still have these, you know, small TVs, and it's like, okay, it sure does look better on that 15-inch, you know, tube display. But, you know, how much are you actually getting there? I don't know. And to that point, folks are announcing these Blu-ray releases of these old anime series, and I'm like, I don't know how much more quality you can squeeze out of a series that was released to TV in 1986. You know, the original film stock, or it might not even film stock, the original tape stock is probably not that much better than what you saw on DVD. You know, putting it on Blu-ray does not magically make the source better. After Blu-ray, there'll be what is that? Crimson thing? Sapphire. isn't it? Some Sapphire thing. They're going to keep on trying to do physical copies because Hollywood is conservative, and media companies are conservative, and they're going to keep on doing the thing they've been doing until there's no one else, buying them. But the reality is, physical copies are kind of silly. I love physical copies. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot to that, but basically saying you have bought this thing for as long as this little physical object works in the devices around your house, and you better make sure that those devices actually still can read this thing sometime in the future. I don't know. I think digital is just going to be a lot easier to manage. It's a lot easier to convert going forward. So if you have it in an old version, you can run it through software and convert it into a new file format. But no, I think Liquidus, I think there's going to be something beyond Blu-ray that folks are going to try to push on us, some kind of 4K display or storage format, and then 8K, and then 16K. So, yeah, I think it's going to be the way of it. But then I think also we're going to move to a more streaming focused world. Some folks will have physical copies and prefer that. Some folks will have files, and some folks will just stream everything. They'll have accounts on various streaming services everywhere. Kind of like today, where you have your Hulu account, your Crunchyroll account, your Funimation account. And it's going to be frustrating, but that's just kind of the way it is. I mean, it is nice that we're starting to now get the kinds of services. I forget, there's is it streaming.com, I think is the name of the site. Let me pull that up. Or where is it streaming? No, that's not it. Where is it? I stream it. There it is. It's canistream.it is the name of the site. And basically, you type in something and it tells you on what services that title is available streaming. So I hope that's going to move forward, and we're going to get some really nice stuff there. I mean, that's that kind of central, not so much, I guess, directory, but also kind of search engine for streaming services. That's another piece of the puzzle. Once it's not so much a question of going and hunting on different services, it's a matter of just saying, okay, type it into the search engine and then pick the service that I already pay for, or buy it for $3 as a file. That's when suddenly streaming becomes a lot more reasonable. You're just type it into the big mainframe computer search engine, and then it gives you the movie, lets you watch the movie. That's kind of the ideal future. So I think we're gonna, we'll see different things. From a producer's perspective, from a creative content delivery perspective, streaming makes a lot of sense. You don't have to deal with various versions, flitting around there. I mean, there's a lot of delivery problems to solve, but that's been solved by various third partners, parties, whatever. So you partner with somebody who can handle all the actual technical delivery of the content, but then it's a matter of saying, okay, you want it, you come to this web page and it's streaming there, and you type in your PayPal information, whatever, and you pay us $2. That's that solves all sorts of various issues in terms of, okay, we're going to do a box set release. What goes into the box set release? What goes onto the menus? What's the quality? How are we delivering it? What can we actually package onto there? What are the extras going to be? That's now much more under your creative control, as opposed to being a function of what the disc can hold, and what people are willing to pay for. It's a lot simpler. Unfortunately, it means that nobody owns it except for the creative, person. It means the people consuming it do not have a copy of it. It's kind of up to the whim of the producer to provide it and make it available to the masses. That said, that is back to the way it was 500 years ago. The bards and the minstrels, they came into your town, they put on a show, and they left. And you could not suddenly, pick up the phone and say, come back to my town because I want to watch that play again. It was under the creative people's control to determine when those performances happened. So you could argue that's more natural. I don't know. But yeah, from a producer's perspective, streaming is helpful. I don't like it, but it's true, or it's a factor. So yeah, Liquidus, I think that's also another thing is that, what is remastering? When they say this is a 4K movie, what does that really mean? You gotta do that dance in terms of figuring out what you're releasing, what you can release, what you have available to you. I mean, I think a lot of folks have amazingly high expectations of film companies in terms of what they're actually going to provide. And they think, well, just, put this incredibly high res thing with, tons of extras and all this stuff onto a Blu-ray, or else you're just not doing your job. And it's like, well, what do they have access to? What else are they doing? What do they have money for? What is the actual market for this? But yeah, exactly, Liquidus. I think, in fact, Harmony Gold went back and remastered Robotech, and it looks gorgeous. And I think that's about as much quality as you're going to get out of that original material. There's just not that much in terms of quality on those old master tapes. So, what you're going to do? If you want to do Blu-ray, okay, but it's not going to look that much better than the DVD. Really, there just aren't that many. The lines are still going to be janky because they were janky in the original. And Funimation can remaster DBZ because they sell ungodly amounts of DBZ. DBZ just keeps selling. And again, it's part of the market forces thing where, yes, Harmony Gold could go back in and remaster Robotech frame by frame for a 4K release and kind of rework all the art and do all that kind of stuff. But how well is Robotech selling versus Dragon Ball Z? I can guarantee you Dragon Ball Z is selling a heck of a lot better than what Robotech does. Robotech certainly has an audience, but it makes sense for Funimation to do that. Maybe not so much for Robotech. Maybe there's not that big of an audience. That's another factor. Again, the anime fans tend to forget, not you guys, but other folks out there, that the market's not that big. There aren't that many people buying this stuff. Even in Japan, I mean, a super popular anime series in Japan will sell 30,000, 40,000 copies, which is great, but that's only the average release, anime release in Japan will sell maybe 4,000 or 5,000 copies. And that's both DVD and Blu-ray. That's not a lot of revenue. So, the audience is not that huge for this stuff. I don't, you could not fit the entire series on 1 or 2 Blu-ray discs. I mean, that's like 120 episodes. So you could do, come on, 1 or 2 box sets, certainly. However they want to do that. Yes, probably box sets rather than discs. But yeah, I don't know. But it's the same thing with anything. It's the same thing with Sword Art Online or Fate or Naruto. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about how popular it is and what folks are willing to put into. It's not reasonable to ask people to pour a lot of money into something that they're not going to get the return on money on. You want that company to stay in business so they can keep on producing and releasing anime. So there's only so much in the form of do it for the art that folks can actually do before suddenly they're not there anymore. They did it for the art until they went out of business. Yeah, exactly, Masa. It's a great example. People complaining that Cowboy Bebop is 4:3. It's like, well, that's what it was made in. It was 4:3. And it probably was made to tape, by the way. I mean, I don't know. People have the problem with old movies too. They complain that an old movie was, why isn't it 16:9? Because in 1947, they weren't made 16:9. They were made in 4:3, basically. Slightly different than 4:3, I think, but but that is funny. I mean, TV series, anime TV series are actually output. They're not even output. They are captured and stored in the resolution in which they are broadcast. So that is a 720p network that they are going to show make the show on. The original content, the files that they are working on at the anime studio with the art is 720p. They're not making it in 1080p and then exporting it in 720. It is just in 720p. It's never going to look any better than that, unless that anime studio is doing something very unusual. But there's only so much there. That's interesting, Liquidus. I don't know. I mean, that is a DVD quality on a Blu-ray, so that would make sense that they would be able to fit something like that onto two Blu-ray discs, possibly. But I thought what we were talking about is remastering Robotech for Blu-ray and then releasing it on Blu-ray in Blu-ray quality. I think that would expand it beyond Blu-ray quality. That's what I meant. Yeah, aspect ratios are a whole world in themselves, Masa, too, as you point out. There are different aspect ratios for different ways you're trying to render it. We had this problem with anime movies where they're made for certain kinds of film releases. There were some weird aspect ratios tried back in the 80s and 90s. And so there are some anime movies, I think, for some reason I'm thinking Robot Carnival was one where the aspect ratio was just weird. That could just be because I've been having some folks have mentioned Robot Carnival to me recently, so it's been on my mind. But yeah, there's the content is kind of what it is. So sometimes you can, but again, this is a problem that a lot of times folks will go back and see, the Blu-ray of Raging Bull and just be knocked down. That's because this was made by a guy who very deliberately kept, very high quality stock, and who really cares. And it's a movie that was very quickly recognized as a classic and thus has been kept in high quality. Folks have been preserving that movie. And then they say, why doesn't Boogie Pop Phantom or Gao Gaigar look that great when it was put, why isn't there an awesome release of that? Well, it was sitting there somewhere. Oh, I see what you're talking about, Liquidus. Okay, then yeah, if you're talking about putting the DVD masters up on Blu-ray, then yeah, you could certainly do that. But again, I don't see what the value would be of releasing Robotech, the Robotech remastered on Blu-ray. Just get the discs, unless it's just to put it in a new medium, so that in the future when Blu-ray players can't play DVDs anymore, you at least have it on Blu-ray. Is that what you're talking about? Or maybe the Blu-ray release would be cheaper. You get it all on. I don't know. To me, if it's already there on DVD, just get that. But then again, maybe that's a future proofing, if you will. So okay, that I think we're understanding each other. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. Let me think in terms of other anime news. I have been rewatching Turn A Gundam, so that's been fun. I'm about 2 discs through rewatching that, and moving through those discs. It's of the recent North American release. So that's 10 episodes. 8 episodes I've watched so far, and it's a beautiful series. No spoilers, but it's been helpful to rewatch and realizing just how well paced those initial episodes are in terms of introducing you to the world, introducing you to the characters, and then moving the story forward very in comprehensible steps every episode. Not, where there are some series like Code Geass where they kind of blow up the moon every episode, and then there are other series where just kind of it takes a while for things to really move forward. And Gundam often has this problem where the first few episodes are kind of slow, and Turn A definitely moves very, very nicely. Now, I recall about 2/3 of the way through, Turn A starts to really slow down. Not unpleasantly, but like, okay, yeah. So we'll see how that continues for the rest of the Gundam series, of the Turn A Gundam series. But it is nice. Cool, Game Escape. Glad to hear that. So yeah, and the other nice thing about Turn A is you don't have to have seen any Gundam to appreciate Turn A Gundam. It helps, as we mentioned, it helps having seen original Gundam. And if you can and are interested, I'd recommend watching Mobile Suit Gundam first. But then I think that's there are many reasons to go back and watch Mobile Suit Gundam. That is just one of them. It's a foundational anime series, period. So if you want to, that's cool. But if not, just start watching Turn A. And the other nice thing about Turn A is, especially for the beginning, for the first part of it, you can just start watching. There's not much in the way of referencing of earlier Gundam series in the first few episodes of Turn A. So you can absolutely start Turn A Gundam and then see how far you get into it. And if you're confused, or not getting where it's going, you can always pause and go to something else. So that's an option as well. So yeah, if Turn A kind of intrigues you, I would definitely buy it and at least give it a try, and you can always come back to it later. Yes, and agreed there, 14th Angel. The Gundam The Origin, the manga, definitely improves the original anime series in the sense that it kind of reworks that story into a more direct narrative, whereas the original Mobile Suit Gundam is more of we have to have a battle every week. And so we're telling a story within that, but there's still a lot of just battles every week that kind of, okay, whatever. So yeah, Gundam The Origin is a good place to start, and you can absolutely watch or read Gundam The Origin without having seen original Gundam. In fact, that would be a good thing to, if you're having trouble with original Gundam or 70s animation. Gundam The Origin, the manga, is a great starting point because it'll actually tell the story and cut out all the fluff, and it's easier to grasp the art when it's in manga style as opposed to the animation. That's interesting, Liquidus. So Harmony Gold basically said, yeah, that's as good as it's going to get. Fair enough. So we had some good conversation, and in fact, I put down a note to at some point make a video along the lines of what Gundam should I watch first, and kind of go through a lot of that stuff that we covered last week on Smoke and Mirrors. I think that is a useful conversation to have about, there are various factors involved. Anyway, so I also actually downloaded Gundam the Origin anime, first episode there. Although I did also find recently that was a Daisuke. Has it available streaming for like $6 or something. So I'll probably end up going there and watching it there. So I've not seen the Origin OVA yet, but I will probably end up going to the to Daisuke and watching that stream there. Assuming that works, I don't know. I don't know if that only works in Japan. I haven't been watching the Origin release closely, to be honest. Again, it's partly because of Unicorn. You know, I enjoyed Unicorn so much that I had difficulty waiting for every episode. So I kind of was like, okay, I kind of want to hold off. But of course, Origin is very different. You know, it's more self-contained stories, so I don't think it's going to be so much of an what's going to happen next. So I think I've been subconsciously thinking, well, I'll probably wait till that OVA is over. But yeah, so I do have the first episode sitting on my hard drive, but I'll probably just buy that and watch the streaming version because that's a good thing to do. So, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to that. What else? Recently bought volume 9 of it's a roller release in the same vein as. Okay, cool. So I'll have to track down a copy of Unicorn. Sweet. Recently bought this, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Good old Yotsubato. Volume 9. I discovered, bizarrely, that I had volumes 1 through 10, but not 9. So I'd somehow not gotten there, which kind of saddens me. So, in fact, I read volume 10 and started flipping through. I was like, who cares? But I heard that volume 10 does call back to volume 9. So, you know, get caught up on Yotsubato. So, yeah, I believe they are planning 4 Gundam the Origin episodes. That's cool. 40 Angel. Do you mean that they got full frontals? Do you mean that for the Japanese release they got full frontals voice actor? Yes, Bandai was the one that had the original Gundam licenses. A good legal way to find the older previous release series without having to go to resellers for the old sets or look up online illegally. Those are the only ways to find the older release series. Well, actually, yeah, no, those are the. I mean, they were released on DVD. You have to go to resellers to find the DVDs. That's kind of it. I'm not aware of anyone streaming them now that they're kind of being handled otherwise. So I think all the streaming rights disappeared. I know ANN was streaming some of the Gundam series, but I think those are gone now too. Does ANN still do that anime streaming stuff? Because they were promoting that pretty heavily back in the day. Let me double check. Because they had like Zeta and a few other things that had been released over time. Video. Anime. Yeah, they are. So that they're certainly showing things. Let's see here. Let's see what they have on their G. So ANN is streaming Gundam 00. They are also streaming Original Gundam and Zeta Gundam. That's a thing. Actually, is Stream Suki? Ooh, that's weird. What the heck? That's bizarre. Why is Stream Suki dead? .org? No. Why is Stream Suki not working? Gotta check on that. No, I want you to pull that up. Huh. Why did Stream Suki die? That worries me. Sorry, guys. So Stream Suki is a site I built a while back to track all this stuff. You know, what anime is streaming where, and it is not responding. So I got to check out and see what's blowing up on the server. Apologies. So I go to AnimeNewsNetwork.com videos and watch Original Gundam, Zeta Gundam, and And that Gundam Info's YouTube channel does have a few. That's a good point, 14th. So, yeah, Shuichi Ikeda is/was/will always be Char, which is awesome. He should be. That voice is just distinctive. I remember watching Gundam Unicorn, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that a character who is called possibly, who is considered the second coming of Char, shows up, and he has that voice, and just hearing that voice come over those speakers was just mind-numbing. And then hearing the characters react to that voice was pretty cool too. Keith Silverstein, and Keith Silverstein did a very nice way, did a very nice job of Gundam in Unicorn, by the way. So I'm glad to see him continuing that tradition. And the original Char in the Bandai dub, I think that was a very effective Char. I like that voice acting too. I'm no problem there. He doesn't have the kind of that deep gravitas that Ikeda has, but he has a he hits all the right notes acting wise. You know, he has kind of that playfulness, but also that seriousness, that you know, a lot of stuff there. Oh, they have Gundam Build Fighters on Gundam Info's YouTube channel. I've got to check that out. Let's see here. See if that'll get me there. There it is. Whoa! Oh, cool. There's a video for the Gunpla Factory. I'll have to watch that. That's very cool. I am putting that off to one side. So the Gundam Info channel currently has a video about their plastic model kit factory. The thing is, are any of these subbed or dubbed? I forget. There's Try episode 20. English subbed. Cool. So that is one way of watching it. Watch it on the YouTube channel. That's cool. Build Fighters is a really fun series. So that and both Build Fighters and Try. But again, kind of Gundam knowledge is expected when watching Build Fighters. Yeah, to this day, if someone's going to get into Gundam, it depends on age. Again, depends on what you're into. Seed's a really good starting point in terms of being, recent animation, comprehensible plot, flashy, but you can get into the characters, and the animation is a little more high budget, quite simply. So, yeah, subbed only on Gundam Info. Gundam Info would not have the license for the English dubs, so that makes sense. So yeah, subbed only on Gundam Info. That is the problem with such licenses. And unfortunately, Right Stuff does not have any streaming service. They'd have to work with somebody else. It'd be cool if Right Stuff like partnered with Crunchyroll and said, "Hey, we will, put this stuff on there as long as we get a serious chunk of the of the royalties for it." If Crunchyroll basically displayed licensed stuff on their own servers, but that would be a fairly complicated contracting thing, I would think, because Crunchyroll at this point, I'm pretty sure. Well, no, it does not. I mean, Crunchyroll is showing some Funimation stuff, so they already do that kind of thing. But yeah, and Shuichi Ikeda, Char, has done a lot of other voice acting, so you'll find him in other roles as well. That's the other fun thing about Char is he shows up in other anime, usually Sunrise stuff, but he's a fun voice actor to bounce around and say, "Oh, that's Char. That's cool." I've had one or two shows where I hear a voice, I'm like, that sounds like the Red Comet. Is it? Yeah. So, I mean, thank goodness for Crunchyroll. As problematic as it has been at times, it is so wonderful that we have a kind of a not a one-stop shop, but a site that does provide large amounts of anime where it can be at least a first stab at, is this available? And so you go there and you search and boom. Again, not ideal, but it's good. And they just had so much stuff on there, and then you can start bouncing to the other sites to see what's available. Yeah, I started Streamsuki because the whole idea was to provide just links to all of the legal anime streaming services, so that folks could actually go in and see, well, this is streaming legally over here. But it did that by just scraping all of the content, by pulling down the web pages and zipping through them looking for content and saying, oh, this, here's the video, so they have this show. And it worked as long as the sites didn't change their web page design too heavily. So things would break occasionally. But unfortunately, it's turning it's not responding anymore. So there must be something behind the scenes that really, really broke. What known anime do we have now still stuck in limbo like Sailor Moon was previously? What do you mean by limbo? Like a licensing limbo where it's not available other than like tracking down copies? I mean, there's tons of it. It's just most folks don't care. There's shows like Boogie Pop Phantom that I keep talking about. That's was released once by Right Stuff, I think. I think Funimation did a rescue license at one point. But there's a lot of stuff that, well, it's technically out there, but you have a tough time finding it. So there's tons of stuff that's in where the license has lapsed and no one's picked it back up again. Evangelion's not in limbo. Evangelion is licensed, but is in negotiation, basically. Unless you mean licensing like for streaming. Streaming is a slightly more clean answer for that, because there's a lot of stuff that was licensed and now the license has lapsed for the stream, and so the stream's gone away. But yeah, I don't quite understand the question, Liquidus. So is Evangelion TV series in limbo? I think. Well, actually, now that I think about that, Liquid, Evangelion was released on DVD or Blu-ray over here not quite a while ago. So I don't know where the license is for that. So typically, what happens is that an American company will license an anime work for American release for about 7 years, is a typical amount, with an initial DVD Blu-ray release. And that means that they have the license to sell that for those 7 years. So once those 7 years are up, then there'll be usually a 6 month, I forget what it's called, but a period in which they have to sell off the rest of their stock. So basically, they have it for 7 years, and then from 7 years to 7 years, 6 months, they have to get rid of any material they have related to that. So sell off DVDs sitting around, sell off stickers, that kind of thing. Kind of get rid of it all. So once that's done, once that's agreed upon, then it's kind of theirs for that 7 years, within that geographic area that they've licensed it in and whatever. So if a series is released on DVD or Blu-ray in 2000, then by 2005, if it's hugely popular, you could do a re-release. But unless you relicensed it, then you only have 2 years to sell that before it kind of goes away. So it depends on how long, and it depends on how the various companies license that series. So, they may have only licensed it for 4 years. The Japanese company may have said, you're not getting this for 7 years. You're getting it for 5 or 3 or whatever, because we know this is a hot property that we can resell quickly. So it depends. But I'm pretty sure that Evangelion that Evangelion license is locked down. But there's really there've been so many releases of Evangelion right now. I think they've pretty well saturated the market, as Kaiser Dermon said, until Evangelion 4 comes out, at which point that's a good time to release a new complete box set of everything ever. So you can do the TV series, Death and Rebirth, End of Eva, and the 4 rebuild films in a $200 box set, and Evangelion fans will buy it. But the other problem with Evangelion is that, as big as it is, and I'm not a huge Evangelion expert, but from what I understand, Evangelion is there's only so much content, like behind the scenes stuff for Evangelion, that's available for like extras and things, that you can do a new release, but what more are you going to put on there? What's new in this release that fans can't get from the existing releases? So I think Evangelion's kind of hit a lot of that limit in terms of they need a little time to build up more material, probably from Rebuild. License Limbo, like you can't find the sets for, can't find on stream. Yeah, tons of things. Gundam is a good example. Macross is famously in License Limbo because of Harmony Gold, lots of other things. Let's see here, what else? Like Angelic Layer is one of my favorite sort of family-friendly anime series. It's got a female protagonist, but it's a show that boys can like, girls can like, adults can like, teenagers can like. It's wonderfully watchable by all sorts of different kinds of people, and it's not weird. It doesn't take a lot of strange liberties with things, but it's fun and actiony. And I was licensed and it came out, and it was reasonably popular at the time, and then it hasn't been released. I'd love to see it again, but you have to find the box sets, and as far as I know, it's not streaming anywhere. But again, I haven't dug deep. So they're releasing Evangelion in Japan. I had not heard that, or I'd forgotten it if it was there. But then again, the Japanese fandom is its own thing. I mean, Japanese Eva, and Evangelion was a special thing in Japan as well. So, cool, 14th, yeah. Angelic Layer is, it's a fun series. I don't think there are a lot of folks who are hardcore Angelic Layer fans. Yeah, it's not the kind of show where people are going to become obsessed by the show, but it's the kind of show where lots of different people can watch it, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. If you have younger siblings, or if you have adults, and that that you kind of want to inoculate for anime, that's a good show to watch with them. Right. And the other thing about Evangelion is that it was kind of the Titanic of anime back in the day, where it was just hugely popular even outside of the normal anime demographic. So it became cool to watch Evangelion, even if you weren't into anime, especially if you weren't into anime. So Eva can get away with a lot of remasters and things because you're going to get a larger audience than that, 100,000 or so otaku in Japan. Yeah, and the director's cut stuff, true. There's also the question of what Hideaki Anno is planning for the TV series, if he's planning any other director's cut type stuff for the TV series. He may be looking to go back into that. But then, of course, Evangelion's a Gainax thing. He's not part of Gainax anymore. He's Studio Khara. So they own that. He doesn't. He does not own Evangelion, the TV series. So, but he could always go back to them and say, "Hey, I want to change some things around," and I'm sure they'd be like, "Hey, sure." It's an excuse to reprint them, Anno's very canny about that. Gainax is. Yeah, well, that's the thing, 14th, and you're right. Eva is very otaku. It is in many ways, an otaku's anime series. It is a reaction to anime. It's a reaction to mecha series. But hey, thanks for stopping by, Game Escape. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's kind of a hipster thing. Eva became a thing that it became trendy. It became popular to say that you watched Evangelion, even if you weren't into it. It was just that made you cool to say that you watch Evangelion. So it's one of those things that comes along where suddenly everybody watches it. Kind of like James Cameron's Avatar. It was lovely, but just everyone went to see that movie and everyone talked incessantly about it. And we look back on that now and with a little bit of why was that such a big deal? But it was a trend. It was kind of a cultural meme, if you will. Not in the sense of like an internet meme, but a thing where just everyone jumped on this thing. It happened. Same thing with Titanic. Everyone watched this movie, and not that it was a bad movie, but suddenly this was the thing that everyone was watching. So yeah, for some strange reason, Evangelion was it. Part of it too was that a lot of Japanese kids grew up watching anime, generally not necessarily the same kind of stuff otaku would watch, but they watched Gundam, they watched Super Robot shows, they watched Mazinger and so forth. So when they saw this, or they heard about this mecha series that was trying to kind of deconstruct things, was this kind of weird thing, there was some frame of reference, certainly more so than there is for most American fans. So I think there was that certain kind of nostalgia for the shows that those folks had grown up with. So it's kind of weird. It's one of the reasons why I talk about how Evangelion didn't really change anime. It was a hugely popular series that a lot of people watched, and so it became kind of this touchstone. And it's become a big part of fandom, and something that people refer to a lot, but didn't really change how people made anime. It didn't introduce a whole new genre. Again, which is not to say it was a bad or problematic series. Just it was a different kind of impact than a Gundam or an Akira or things like that. But that's the way it is. So yeah, it's one of those things that just keeps on making money. Kind of like Dragon Ball Z again. Funimation keeps on releasing Dragon Ball Z stuff because people keep on buying it. Yeah, and that's one of the very strong reasons why I think Eva remains compelling. Liquidus is that there is this aspect that they thought through their concept and tried to approach a Gundam kind of approach to mecha, where they thought about, okay, why are these things here? And I say Gundam because Gundam was their model. I mean, they said they watched Mobile Suit Gundam and were just kind of their jaw dropped. So there's a lot more of that thought through in terms of coming up with legitimate reasons for that. And to be fair, with a lot of previous mecha series where there wasn't the reason, is because the creators kind of wanted you to just not worry that much. It's just a TV show. You should really just relax, as Mystery Science Theater said. There's a giant robot because there's a giant robot. I mean, it's really hard to justify why you would use a giant robot. Giant robots are, to a certain extent, a somewhat absurd concept. So and it goes back to a Japanese artistic concepts from hundreds of years ago, that there comes a point where you don't try to justify everything. You just kind of let it lie. But Evangelion was made by people who were reacting against that and saying, no, we're we're sci-fi geeks. We have to have a reason for everything. So, and in Gundam, it was, well, you have these giant space construction projects. And so you need these large vehicles in space. And so these, you have these humanoid vehicles and such. So yeah, it's I mean, granted, mobile suits were kind of designed as weapons, but they were designed as these sort of multi-purpose tool weapons that would make sense in space because they correspond to how humans are. So it's easier to pilot something that is multi-purpose when you have legs and arms because you have your own personal versions of that. Anyway, yeah, you're right, Kaiser Demon. Toei is on fire. Partly, I think, because of One Piece. Toei started, they started doing One Piece, and that is just so immensely not just popular, but also it's making so much money. It is one of the most successful media franchises of all time in Japan. So I think that fueled them dramatically. Anime studios generally don't make a lot of money off of anime in and of itself, but I think that brought in so much business that let them actually move forward. So yeah, Saint Seiya, Dragon Ball, etc. Also, Toei has the advantage that they are kind of the Disney of Japan, so there's a lot of nostalgia factor. So Saint Seiya, they brought back, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that from my childhood." The Dragon Ball series, I'm mildly surprised it took them this long to do a new Dragon Ball series. An original new Dragon Ball series. And Precure, you're absolutely right, Kaiser Demon. Precure was also a huge hit for them. And the fact that it was an original franchise that they kind of created like Digimon. In fact, Digimon was to a great extent the formula for that. It was the Kickstarter for all of that, if you will. Digimon was them looking around and looking at Pokemon and saying, why don't we have something like that? We're freaking Toei. We should be able to have an original franchise aimed at kids. And they did, and Digimon was a big success. It also helped that they found writers who really cared about making good shows for kids. So, yeah, Toei is doing very well. If you're interested, Toei released an English language PDF of their financial reports from, I think, third or fourth quarter 2014. I have it here somewhere. Downloads. Yeah. I'm sorry. They're yeah. So it's they consider it their financial third quarter 2015, but for the rest of the world, it's actually it's April 1st through December 31st, 2000 fiscal year. Oh, it's fiscal year. I'm sorry. So it is a little complicated there. But basically how well they've been doing recently. And, they have net sales of 30 billion, what was it? I'm sorry, 22 billion yen over the course of, fiscal year 2014. Of which their sort of profit, their net income was 2 billion yen, about $20 million. Not bad for an anime studio. And that's all increases over the previous year. Of which film is by far their biggest moneymaker, followed by licensing. So money they get in from toys and such based on their stuff. If Toei is Japan's Disney, who would be Japan's Warner Brothers? Interesting.
Tatsunoko Productions, maybe? I don't know. There weren't a lot of other companies doing kind of weird, wacky stuff back in the early days that I know of. There probably were, but I don't know who were their real rivals at the time. I'd say probably Tatsunoko because they were doing other stuff. Yeah, that's a good metaphor there, Liquidus, is that Toei is kind of like Marvel. They have all these different sort of sub-franchises that are juggling all at once in this big resurgence. Where suddenly Marvel is cool in this larger in the larger culture. People knew about Marvel comics before, but they were this little they were comics. Now Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's a big thing in general culture. I don't know if that maps too closely onto Toei Animation. I think Toei is still kind of operating within its own parameters, but Toei is certainly well known outside of otaku circles. So, absolutely Precure, and I keep focusing on the shonen stuff, which I should not. But Precure is a huge thing for Toei. It is kind of front and center. It is mostly front and center on the stuff they're talking about. And actually, Toei's partnering with Marvel. They do Disc Wars Avengers. So the comparison is apt. Just looking through that PDF right now. 22 billion in net sales. And then of their film work, and film doesn't just mean movies, but anime and such. 3 billion from TV, 1 billion from DVDs, 500 million from movies, and 3 billion from overseas money, and then 2 billion for kind of miscellaneous stuff. So, yeah. And of their licensing fees, 6 billion comes from within Japan and 1.7 from overseas. That's a good chunk of their licensing fees comes from international. It would be cool to see more anime adaptations of American stuff. They love adapting Japanese stuff, which makes sense. That's their, that's the culture that they're in. It's unreasonable to say, why aren't you making more stuff from that other country? But it would be interesting to see an anime take on an American property. Of course, we saw it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's been done, but it'd be neat to see an anime version of Terminator, or another good example, Lord of the Rings, actually, or sci-fi. I mean, anime is good at sci-fi, so it'd be cool to see an anime Ender's Game or an anime Dune. In fact, I've long said that the Dune is best adapted to animation. It's really hard to make that aesthetic work in live action, but I think if you do all those visuals in animation, it works. Yeah, anime Star Wars. That'd be awesome. Big budgeted anime Star Wars. The Jedi are pretty anime, let's be honest. And Lucas is a well-known anime fan. So he certainly incorporated anime aesthetics into the Star Wars universe over time. You can certainly see that in how the Jedi leap and jump around in the prequels. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going around. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how the Japanese took other properties. Another stuff like Perry Rodan, the European sci-fi franchise. There's that German sci-fi series in the '60s. Forgetting the term of it now, the name of it now. So yeah, I mean, there's Thunderbirds. Be interesting to see in anime. I think Thunderbirds would actually work a lot better in anime. So who knows? Come to that, it would be interesting to see a lot of, and I don't know, I'm getting off track here, but it'd be interesting to see modern remakes of like Golden and Silver Age sci-fi. To see those sorts of concepts rendered with the kinds of budgets we have today. The big Journey to the Stars epic stuff would be pretty cool. We certainly have the budget to make those things look more accurate, and we can present that kind of positive view of the future. Would be pretty awesome. If we can do Mad Max and do Mad Max justice, as Fury Road certainly does, where that's not, Mad Max Fury Road is not the original Mad Max. It is a modern movie, but it's there. It has the right feel for that universe. So we can certainly use modern film techniques to match the way things used to look, or the way things were intended, if you will. Last I heard, George Miller is still not pursuing the Mad Max anime. That was sort of a stopgap because he figured the movie would never actually get off the ground, and because the anime is so cheap, it's like, oh, this would be one way of doing it, and anime is popular. So I don't think he's really interested in doing that now that the movie's kind of out there. But he still has the plans for those 3 more Mad Max movies. Let's see here. And yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Yamasa. Modern sci-fi on film and television, frankly, is very bleak and dark, not just in terms of themes, but also in terms of just color saturation. It's like all future must be grimy and desaturated, and it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. By 1560 sci-fi, by the way, I mean like the books, not so much the TV shows or the movies. I mean like Asimov, Bradbury, Clark, all that good stuff. There's all sorts of really interesting stuff out there in terms of the rocket ships, the Foundation series, the Martian Chronicles. It'd be neat to see that done today instead of having it all be bleak. Like George Miller talked about and how in Fury Road, he told everyone, make it vibrantly colorful, be as colorful as possible, because everything is just so washed out these days. And Mad Max does have this sort of vibrancy to its color scheme as a result. Now it's a beaten up, desert colorful. But it is much more saturated with color than your typical sci-fi film these days. Yeah, I would agree that Guardians of the Galaxy is science fantasy, but I take your point, Night Sabers. You're correct. And the Guardians of the Galaxy has brought back that idea to sort of a larger sci-fi audience that, oh, wait, we can have spaceships and explosions and space stations and so forth, and be colorful and fun and big. So I agree with you, lightsabers. I think Guardians of the Galaxy was a great push in that right direction. The question is whether other folks are going to follow Guardians of the Galaxy, whether folks are going to sort of use that as a jumping off point. I hope so. That said, I mean, I would love to see Star Trek that goes back to the roots of Star Trek, not in terms of concept, but a Star Trek thing that is actually intelligent. That would be nice. Yeah, the same thing with video games. You know, I saw the trailer for XCOM 2, and I was like, boy, that looks like someone's been watching a lot of Blade Runner. You know, and it's all dark and it's people shooting at each other. Well, that's new. And I played the original XCOM. I love that game, but it was like, yeah, that's just. Good point, Kaiser Demon. Maybe the new Star Wars trilogy might bring back more of a hopeful approach. Although, from what I'm seeing of the trailer, I mean that could be a fairly dark movie. We'll see where J.J. Abrams takes it. Fortunately, J.J. tends to be pretty hopeful about things. He tends to be pretty upbeat in general. And the problem with this the new Star Trek movies is, like you say, it's much more Star Wars-y. It's just Star Trek is a big budget Hollywood popcorn film franchise. We're going to smash starships into each other, basically. It is basically executives taking toys and going pew 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 for 2 hours, which is not what Star Trek was ever meant to be. It was meant to be exciting and adventurous, but it was always meant to have something deeper within it. And that's just been lost in the film franchise, sadly. So that's kind of the issue there. But JJ is ultimately his stories have a positive view on humanity, which I think is important, and he gets that in the Star Trek franchise, certainly. And again, this is not to say that one should hate the Star Trek films. It's just that I think they're not Star Trek. You know, you can enjoy them for what they are, but I don't think they really fit into that universe very well. Yeah, I'm actually pretty hopeful about the live-action Ghost in the Shell film, because we've now reached a point where Hollywood is consistently producing science fiction films of the appropriate budget and approach to special effects that you would need for a Ghost in the Shell film. You know, a Ghost in the Shell film needs a lot of special effects, and it needs a certain feel. It needs an aesthetic, and we're seeing that kind of aesthetic. We are seeing strong aesthetics in science fiction films, which I think is really good. So I'm hopeful on that score that at least we're now at a place where that's possible. Also, I think Scarlett Johansson would be a fantastic Major Kusanagi. Yes, one can complain about whitewashing of films. I think that is certainly a problem. I'm not, that is a separate issue. But I'm saying in terms of casting, she is when you see her answering questions, not just in film, but in interviews, I'm like, yeah, that's how I would imagine Major Kusanagi, sitting answering interviews. So, I did not like Star Trek the Motion Picture in its original form. I thoroughly enjoyed the director's cut of Star Trek the Motion Picture. That version fixed the film. It is no longer boring, which I did not think I would ever say. But they tightened that film perfectly for that director's cut. That's interesting, lightsabers. I'm glad to see folks made First Contact a more interesting film. I did not see First Contact. I'm not a Next Generation guy, personally. Next Gen was just United Nations in space, and it was just kind of dull for me. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for I'm all for the new Star Wars movies, taking a somewhat different approach to that universe, and you need to do that. You know, you can't just clone the past. That never works. So I'm curious to see what direction they're going to take with it. It looks to me, and what I'm hoping is happening, is that they're taking the approach that Timothy Zahn took in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, you know, that first trilogy of Star Wars books, which is we're going to introduce some major perils, some big problems, but it's still going to be a big actiony science fantasy action story. We're just going to kind of we're going to put in some serious issues. It would be awesome, and I have no idea if here's the thing: Abrams is about my age, so there's a good chance that he read those Star Wars books. I don't know. Maybe he said. It would be so awesome if Abrams threw in a Thrawn reference in the film. If Thrawn is just kind of there in the background somewhere, I think that would be awesome. He doesn't have to follow that chronology, but I think if he just had a blue-skinned admiral somewhere, that would be amazing. And throw that into a trailer somewhere, I think fans would just foam at the mouth. Yeah, live action monster would work very nicely. Come to that, I mean, can you imagine Guillermo del Toro doing a live action Pluto? I mean, that he could do it. He could do Pluto. The thing about the odd number versus even number Star Trek thing is, I love Star Trek V. It's a goofy film. It's a weird, odd film, but it's funny, and it is meant to be funny. Like, it's not taking itself too seriously, which I really like. It has one of those premises that you'd see in Star Trek, where they're dealing with kind of this quasi-religious concept. They're dealing with a religious nutball, but someone who feels something very strongly. He has this ability, which is kind of supernatural, but kind of not. It's an interesting concept, and then they deal with that in a very realistic Trekkie way at the end, where this guy is sure that it's this is God, and then what does God need with a starship? What's going on here? I think I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I think people come at that movie from angles where they're not appreciating it just kind of for what it is. And I think if you step into it and say, okay, this is going to be a more fun movie like 4 was, there we go. Yeah, no, Star Trek V for me is one of those Star Trek movies that I can watch over and over again. 5 to me is a lot of fun. Again, it's more in the spirit of original Trek. It's kind of goofy. It's kind of weird. It takes a kind of a golden or silver age sci-fi book concept or short story concept and just blast away with it. Like Who Mourns for Adonis or The Squire of Gothos, kind of these weird concepts, and throws some fun moments in there. There's a lot of fun stuff between the various characters, but it also is about their friendship and their relationship to a depth that you don't see in a lot of other Star Trek storylines, where they're sacrificing for each other in other stories and such. You know, obviously there's stuff in 2 and 3, but 5 is more about, you know, 5 is about those little moments that make up that friendship to me. But yeah, I mean, I think Star Wars. Well, I can tell you why Star Wars was so popular. Um, Nothing like it had ever been done. The kinetic energy of that film was completely new, especially the first one. No one had seen anything like that before, and no one had seen so many things in Star Wars: the stressed universe, the distressed universe, rather, the strong characters, the science fantasy aspect, so many things there. It just blew people away. And my parents were at the premiere, by the way. Well, not the premiere like in California, but they saw it, you know, when it came out, and they've told me about how unbelievable it was. And then Empire Strikes Back came out. Like, everyone thought that was just an awesome movie. And Empire Strikes Back came out, and suddenly there was depth and complexity and character work and, you know, all sorts of stuff going on there. I mean, Empire was a tour de force that tremendously deepened that universe and deepened the characters. And then Return of the Jedi comes out, and it actually completes that storyline. Again, folks thought, okay, Empire Strikes Back, awesome, but how are you really going to finish this story? Everyone thought Empire Strikes Back was them pushing as far as they possibly could with the storyline and ending on this weird cliffhanger. Remember, Empire Strikes Back is a very odd place to end a movie, and they thought they painted themselves into a corner. Yeah, people thought that Empire Strikes Back you couldn't end that movie well. And then Return of the Jedi comes in, couldn't end that trilogy well. They thought that and then Return of the Jedi came out, and it's no, actually we ended that story really, really effectively. So it was that kind of triple threat where the first movie blows everyone away, and the second one actually goes deeper, and the third one actually finishes the story. That, yeah, really, really is very impressive. And to an extent, Friticus, I'm uncertain as to how. I think some people have kind of overstated the influence of Kurosawa on Lucas. I think Lucas certainly learned a lot from Kurosawa, but I think he learned a lot from Kurosawa in the sense of strong direction, in terms of really filling the camera with characters at the right time, and then not filling the character with cameras at the right time. You know, knowing how to really to draw the viewer's attention, or to not do so. That said, Star Wars is not a Kurosawa film. Kurosawa could not have made Star Wars. So I think Kurosawa was an awesome instructor in that sense, but I think you phrased that well, Friticus, that he owes much of his influence to Kurosawa and his movies. I think a lot of people say, oh, you know, it's basically a Kurosawa movie. No. And you're right, Masa, that the old movies ended on cliffhangers, but people at the time thought that cliffhanger was them painting themselves into a corner. A lot of folks didn't quite get the serial, references of original Star Wars, and much fewer do now, unfortunately. But a lot of people thought that was kind of a cop-out. They thought that it was, oh, well, they had to end at that point. And I was 6 when Return of the Jedi came out, so I was kind of around for some of that discussion. And I agree, lightsabers. The whole thing between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor was just so beautifully put together. That whole back and forth as to what they were going to do. And what was brilliant about it is that it was not clear what Luke was going to do in that situation. It wasn't this simple, I'm just going to, do this thing. I mean, to be clear, Luke went into that throne room expecting to get blown up on the Death Star. He thought he was going to die with Vader and the Emperor. And then when it became clear that's not what's going to happen, he's thrown in this difficult situation where he doesn't want to kill Vader. He doesn't even want to kill the Emperor because killing the Emperor gives into the dark side. It is this beautiful thing. That's interesting, Liquidus, and that's fair. I mean, I love science fiction in space. I want to live in space. I want to live on a space colony. So I don't share that, but I totally get it. And I think Star Fox and Tenchi Muyo are good examples of things where it's science fiction, but it's not science fiction in that sense of giant orbiting space colonies. Yeah, I think that's totally cool. There's, one can appreciate different aspects of all this stuff. So, I'm one of these people who, I love the idea of living on a Mars colony. I don't know that I'd volunteer to go there on a one-way trip, but I love the idea of living in space and making that future happen. So, yeah, I want to live on a Gundam space colony, an O'Neill cylinder, as they're called. Yeah, I want to live on one of those. That would just make me so happy. I was watching footage from the ISS, International Space Station, the other day, and was just overcome by the awesomeness of the idea of living and working in space, even if it's just for a couple months, but you're in space. Maybe Masa, I don't know. But I'm one of those nutballs who believes that we really need to have a permanent human settlement off Earth, if just because Earth might get hit by something really big, at some point, and this little globe might not be habitable forever. Whether by our our hand or something else. That's just kind of something you gotta be aware of. So I'd love to see us, move, not necessarily move beyond Earth in the sense of abandoning Earth, but as Arthur C. Clarke said, Earth is too small and fragile of a basket for humanity to keep all of its eggs in. I think it's a good way of putting it. So, yeah. In fact, Evan and I, for a while, thought about doing Geek Spectrum. And I don't know really quite why we abandoned this. We thought of the idea of branding Geek Spectrum more as the Spaceship Geek or something along those lines, where we're kind of on a spaceship and we're watching this stuff, and we're embracing geek stuff and talking about it, but it's all happening on board this spaceship that's going from maybe it's a generational starship or something, and so it's all kind of different decks of the spaceship or different rooms in the spaceship. So we have kind of the anime deck and the Marvel deck, or the comics deck, if you will, which that was kind of a neat concept. And eventually we'd redress all this stuff so there'd be stuff in the background implying that we're on a ship and we're wearing uniforms or something. That'd be fun. I think we both realize that's a bit much to do for that concept. Like, if we had a TV show, that might be one thing, but it's a lot to it's a lot to ask, and I don't know that a network would really fit into that whole concept. And we could kind of get a lot of people to buy into that concept in terms of guests on the program. But yeah, exactly, Masa. On the Intergalactic Space Weekend, or it's Toonami. We're on the Absolution, or it actually goes back to the Diner, which is a radio program that someone I know did. James Lilacs. He did this radio show every Saturday night from the Diner, which is this 50s style diner off Old Highway 23. It's about 18 and a half minutes from wherever you happen to be right now. And he would broadcast from the diner and play music, but he would always have some storyline throughout the course of this. I think it was like a 3-hour, broadcast block. It was one of those things where we basically had a 3-hour hosting period on a radio station, like Saturday nights. And so we get on and they play music, but in between that, instead of just saying, well, that was this, and now we move on to this, he would talk about, well, we're, I'm enjoying my coffee right now, and it's good coffee, and Mabel's coming over with something. And it's been kind of a weird week because here at the diner, they've been talking about they're ripping up some of the concrete out front. People aren't happy about that. And then that would evolve into a whole storyline about how they uncovered, Nazi gold underneath the diner, or transmission equipment, and there'd be kind of this whole big storyline that they develop over the course of the 3 hours, which that was a kind of a really neat idea. And I always love to do that, and of course I was always in the context of they're playing music, so that was always woven into in between all of these musical segments. But he would just kind of paint this word picture of being at the diner and all this stuff going on. And so you could have guests that would kind of sit down in the diner, and other characters that would appear at the diner, but it would become this way to do things. So I love the idea of being on a starship, going from one place to another. And so we kind of work in this whole mythology into all of that. So I'd love to do that at some point, but it's a little much for us at this point. So we will see. So the advantage is you can weave that in within or around existing content. But again, we don't really fit. I would love to do that as an actual show. We were actually talking this past week to a guy who's an animator. He works in the animation industry, the American animation industry, and he's also done some puppetry stuff. And it'd be awesome to do kind of a combined puppet, thing. Basically Muppets plus human actors. But that would, we'd have to actually make a show. Like we'd be producing a fictional show, which would be awesome. Doing the whole amiibo thing. Cool. Sorry. So, yep. So that's kind of me right now. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about or have questions about before I head out? Because I've got it's nearly midnight here, and as I said, my sleep pattern has been kind of weird, so I kind of like to get to bed before 3 a.m. today, so I can kind of reset that whole thing. I'm actually planning on going out tomorrow and doing kind of a day trip. So do you guys have any other questions or stuff you wanted to talk about? And I'd be happy to dive in, talk about that stuff. Yeah, I have no idea what an amiibo is. I looked it up on Wikipedia, but that's the extent of my knowledge about amiibos. Not my thing. In terms of collectibles, I did get this. It won't fall apart. It was unhappy with me a while ago. But got a little Capul figurine at the local Barnes & Noble. So as I mentioned last week on Smoke and Mirrors, Barnes & Noble is selling Gundam model kits, including little figurines. And so they had a Capul there. And because I've been watching Turn A Gundam, in which Capul is making an appearance, spoiler alert, I saw that and thought, oh, that's worth a couple of bucks, just to have that sitting around there. And since I already have, I don't know if you can see it. You probably won't be able to. Pretty well. I have a Turn A model kit. So you see sitting in there with the Turn A. That's my big thing of the moment. I also got also worth mentioning. You may have seen that little blue box up there. So on eBay, I came across a very cheap model kit for a flat from Turn A Gundam. And I just really love the design of the flats. So I'm going to put this together hopefully pretty soon. If we do, once we finish our Open Gundam style episode with putting together those model kits, then I think I might do the flat next. So very nice little model kit there. Another Sid Mead design, which is pretty cool. See here, just looking for something here real quick. I wonder if they mentioned Sid Mead on here. Probably not. Nope. I'm curious to see how this turns out, because it's a rather unusual design. So I'm wondering how the colors are will look, all that kind of stuff. This would be a good one to do some painting on. So I'm planning on doing some model painting. Get into figuring out how to make all that look good. Partly because I'm doing a bunch of these 3D printed designs for tabletop role-playing stuff. So I'm designing 3D printable minis for role-playing. So that's it would be worth me learning how to paint, partly because I can now print plastic miniatures. So it's like, if I mess it up, I just print out a new one. I agree, 14th Angel. I love the design for the Turn A. I think that is a beautiful mecha design. Hard to animate, unfortunately, but I think a beautiful, beautiful design. I think Sid Mead got it. Every time somebody bets against Nintendo comes back. Remember when the first Wii came out, and folks just turned up their nose at it. And so when it was announced, and folks were like, you're not going to sell 10 units of the Wii. There's just no way. It's absurd." And boom. And then they kind of foundered for a while. The Wii U came out, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Nintendo's lost their edge. It's they're gone. They're how can they ever come back?" And then they do the amiibos, and it's like, well, never bet against Nintendo. They don't always do the right thing, but they find ways to survive, as they've been doing for like 100 years. So back in the days when they were selling playing cards. It is kind of amazing, isn't it? It just some companies just find ways of continuing. Trying to think of any other anime things to talk about. I said the plastic model kits. And by the way, we don't plan on doing too much in the way of the model kit stuff. We think it's a fun hobby thing to talk about, to show folks what model kitting is like and assembling things. but it's not something that we're like, oh yeah, we're going to spend, we're going to do lots of shows about model kits. Because I appreciate that you guys like it and find it interesting, but it's not, going to be a weekly model kit show. So hopefully we can kind of cover it and talk about it and then move on from there. We will see. I actually just bought a PDF about model kits, and I want to find the name of it because it's very interesting. It's called, excuse me, Painting and Weathering for Props and Replicas. It's by Harrison Cricks of Volpin Props. He does these amazing painting and weathering on props, and he's done this pretty big PDF, but it's not one of these, I'm gonna dump a lot of stuff on you kind of PDFs. It's a lot of pictures, a lot of explanation. So it's very approachable and understandable. So that's called Painting and Weathering. Oops, I'll get the full name there. Painting and Weathering for Props and Replicas by Harrison Cricks of Volpin Props. So hopefully I can share some of those tips and tricks once I played around some more. At that point, I should probably print some more minis. Cool. All right. So since nobody has any particular burning topics, I'm going to head out for the night. So thank you all for joining me. As always, we will be doing Smoke and Mirrors this Friday, starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by Horizons, the news show. So Smoke and Mirrors will be Haruhi episode 2 and Yamada's First Time episode 8. It means we'll be 2/3 of the way through Yamada. It's pretty exciting. And the news again will be the top 4 or 5 news stories of the week. So we're trying to go quality instead of quantity, and kind of go into some detail about each of those news stories. So you'll come away knowing some of the big news stories and kind of why they're important and what the context is for all of them. That's the idea there. And we're starting to line up other interviewees. So you'll see more otakus over the coming weeks. And as always, head over to geekspectrum.org for all of the stuff. Thanks, 14th Angel. Yes, this will be the first episode of the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, as in the episode 1, if you will, of there for Smoke and Mirrors. The episode starting with Kyon biking to school and meeting Haruhi for the first time. That will be the episode for this Friday's Smoke and Mirrors. And we'll see if we have anything else to cover, but I think that will be it for Friday. And then next week, we're back to our usual Tuesdays Smoke and Mirrors for at least a few weeks. I've put up on the geekspectrum.org site, FYI. I'm just going to pull up my my material. Make sure I'm applying the schedule on geekspectrum.org. I think has Smoke and Mirrors out for a little while. Yeah, so I scheduled out Smoke and Mirrors on the geekspectrum.org through July. So the next 2 months is up there. And then I'll be updating the otakunovideo.net schedule, kind of catch as catch can, but it's a lot easier for us to update the schedule on geekspectrum.org. So I kind of got that schedule way out in the future, and otakunovideo.net I'll keep updating, but it's just going to be kind of the next few weeks worth of shows will be up on there. Thanks for asking, Kaiser. We do not have a Patreon for geekspectrum.org yet. We're going to do that. So let me ask you guys a question before I head out. Do you guys have any suggestions for backer level rewards for a Patreon for Geek Spectrum? So that is we are planning a Patreon. We just haven't put it together yet. I've actually put together, I think, a few pages for a Patreon for us. And if nothing else, it'll just be a pledge money per video. But the question is, do you guys have any suggestions on if somebody pledges a certain amount per video, what special thing we could give them? We'd like some suggestions there. If folks who pledge a lot could get some special privileges, access to some special thing. The one thing we were thinking of doing, so this is a good thing to bring up, is that people who pledge at a certain high level will get access to a private hangout with us. So you'll be able to do and we'll unfortunately have to figure out some kind of schedule for this, but you'll be able to join us in a private hangout with your video and or audio if you'd like, so you can talk to us directly live in real time, and we can also do we can also show anime, so we can do kind of a classic club kind of a thing with those people who have paid, I don't know, X dollars per episode. So that is one thing we'd like to do. Producer credit is an excellent idea. Otaku goods, that's an interesting idea. So we might do a giveaway for those who've pledged for a lot. I.e., you don't, it's not like we give you something, we're not going to ship something to every backer, every high-level backer every episode. But maybe, you put into a drawing for a poster once a month. And so once a month, we send out a poster to one of the high-level backers. That's an excellent idea. Producer credit, like I said, is a good idea. Obviously, we'll put all of our Patreon supporters somewhere so folks know, we'll thank them in some way, shape, or form. But we can certainly do, you get a producer credit if you give a lot of money. That would be cool. We're also trying to think, how can we reward you guys specially for supporting us? I mean, what would you guys like us to do for you? We are your servants in that sense. So we definitely like to be useful to you. What will the tiers of donations be? That's open. We're not sure yet, and we'll probably play around with it for a while. In other words, it won't be set in stone on day one, but it's something like you can pledge as much as you want, and then for, I don't know, $1 per episode, then you get a producer credit, $2 per episode. You get put into for into a bucket for a thing shipped to you. $3 an episode, then you get a live conversation with us, and we watch anime together. Something like that. Maybe it's $2, $5, $10. I don't know. But we have to figure all that out. We is Evan and I, Kaiser Derman. So Evan and myself. That is the totality of the we. Now, there are also folks that we're kind of pulling in for otaku interviews and other stuff, and we're hoping to do shows with them. So like the studio cosplay stuff, we'd love to do a regular cosplay segment with them where they come in and talk about cosplay for us regularly. But that's the idea is Evan and I can provide, material content, advice, suggestions, whatever. Maybe we could do something where the higher level stuff, we will give them tailored recommendations. So you tell us what anime you've watched, and we will recommend anime specifically for you. Maybe. But yeah, how could we help you guys be better, be more informed otaku? And some of that can feed back into the shows we do in general. But how can we serve you? And moreover, what would entice people to pledge a lot of money? Let's just be honest. We're not trying to gouge people, but if we can think of something that people would really put money into, then cool. And we're willing to spend some time and money on that too. But the posters are a really good idea because that's something that we can, that is, it's valuable, and it is more valuable than the, in other words, if people are spending, again, a couple of bucks per episode, then the amount of money they're putting into is less than their cost if they were buying the poster and getting the shipping themselves. But amortized over all the different people who are pledging at that level, it becomes, worth it for us in terms of just the cost of buying the posters and shipping them out. So we could get some copies of like Megami magazine and stuff from Japan. So yeah, like what is it? It would be somewhat like stretch goals for within Patreon. So it's more like backer levels. So the tiers. So you can pledge at different levels, and at higher levels you get more stuff, basically. But yeah, exactly as Masa says, the Kickstarter without an expiration date, and it's per thing released as opposed to per one release of everything all at once, which is more the Kickstarter model. But Patreon is more, you pay us for, or you pledge for each individual episode that we release. So yeah, and we would welcome 5-cent pledges, but if there's something that's kind of that high reward for both parties, where you're pledging a significant amount of money, but it's a lot less than you would pay for that thing individually, and then that gives us the money to do it for a lot of different stuff. Yeah, so for those not familiar with Patreon sort of model, you pledge per released item, in this case video, and then you set some maximum value, some maximum dollar amount per month. So in other words, you may say, I'm willing to pledge, let's say, $2 per video, but I stop at 10 episodes a month, or $10 a month. So we get paid for those, or you pay us for those first 5 videos, and then it stops. So we can't release 38 videos in a month and suddenly bankrupt you. So you can max out, you can set that maximum amount that you're willing to pledge per month, and then we produce however much content we want, and folks can feel comfortable that we're not going to gouge them. So that is kind of the idea. This is one of the things I love about you guys, is that I got 6 viewers and you're almost all chatting, which is really cool. That you guys are all, you talk back, which is really cool of you and really fun. And it's one of the reasons why this is, I love doing this. And it's I just thank you all for engaging. This is really, really cool. And the other thing we'll do is we've been putting together lists of equipment that we'd like to get that would make the show better. So, for example, a better camera for Smoke and Mirrors. So the camera we're using right now is kind of low quality. So we kind of like to upgrade to something that would give us a better frame rate. And so kind of looking at that stuff and kind of pricing it out and cataloging it, so we'll be able to say stuff like, once we get a certain number of pledges, then we'll be able to get this thing. So, once we get, $80 worth of pledges, then we can spend that on this new piece of equipment. So you'll also see that on the Patreon. We'll be able to tell you guys, you're pledging this money for this better equipment, for this better stuff. So thanks, Masa. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that we like that stuff. We like talking to you guys, and we like interacting with our audience, and partly just so that, again, so we can serve you better, so that we know what you guys want and are interested in, and so we can tell you that, we can give you that information. That's why we want to do a video game show. It's because people like video games, and that's a useful thing. or comics or whatever. There are all these sort of various topics. Folks want to go into Gundam, so we can go into Gundam. Yeah, or better connection. There's the net connection is actually pretty good at Evans. It's the hardware that we're working on is the main limitation. He's set up for butter smooth audio, so that audio that we're exporting is, if all of the switches are in the right position, that audio just sounds beautiful. It's just not kind of set up for streaming that video out. So we're trying to get that figured out correctly. So again, hopefully this Friday that and we've actually already installed the new RAM in that desktop. So we should be able to stream out of that, and that should be a lot better in terms of a video frame rate. So that'll help that at least, and it'll not just video frame rate, but also the pixelation. So it just can't, that PC could not push out that many pixels. So I'm hoping that the new RAM should help that quite significantly. That is kind of the idea. Oh. So yeah, so we'll think about all that. Thank you all for those suggestions and ideas. So I definitely producer credit, definitely some kind of live hangout with us. And again, I'm not sure when we would time that or schedule it, because we want to be able to do it in a way or at a time when folks could actually show up. Kind of sucks if you're paying for something that you can't actually go to because it's at 5 a.m. for you. So that's cool. Again, kind of a tier where you're getting stuff from us would be very cool. One of the complexities of that, and again, it's not that we aren't going to do that, but one of the complexities of shipping things to people is that this is a very international audience. I'm actually quite proud of the fact that I get a lot of folks internationally, which makes shipping expensive. Because normally, if this were a North American or an American audience, I could ship out cards and posters and stuff a lot more often and more frequently and more easily, because it's cheap to mail a simple flat thing. But for international stuff, something that becomes $15-20 per mailing, just for shipping. So we got to figure that out. Thank you, Masa. So Masa, I think see what we can do here. I'm going to try something. Brent. That works. So Masa, I've just put my email address in the chat. If you could please send me an email with the subject of video games or something along those lines, just so I know that it's from you. And actually put Masa in there as well in the subject line. I get a lot of email, so that'll kind of make you rise to the top. I'd love to work with you on that. So and definitely link me to your YouTube show so I get a sense of kind of what your setup is. And yeah, we would love to work with you on that and see what we can set up. Our initial idea is to do an actual play of us as noobs playing a game of some kind. Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, definitely shoot me an email and we'll start talking about that. That'd be awesome. We talked, last week about choosing some kind of show for that actual play. I've talked that over with Evan. He likes them. He likes the ideas. I think he even had a suggestion. I gotta pull up. And I remember when I showed that list to him of the games you recommended last time, I asked him kind of which one intrigued him most, and I'm trying to remember which one he liked most. I think he was most intrigued by Evil Zone. Yeah, so it would be basically a let's play of something. So starting with Evil Zone as an easy beat 'em up or fighting game with some kind of plot that we can actually understand. So again, not committed to that, but that was kind of our first. Oh, that's that's a strong contender. So we got to figure all that out. And then of course we got to get, the emulators and all that stuff. So that might be the way of doing it. I think we go for a Twitch account for the video games. And this is why we're doing Geek Spectrum the way we're doing it. We want kind of a central website so that we can tell people, hey, we're doing this video game show. We're not going to do it on YouTube. We're going to do it on Twitch. So kind of everyone can kind of bounce back to geekspectrum.org as kind of a central clearinghouse for all these different shows and materials. It would probably be on Twitch. And again, because that would kind of get us that larger video game audience. YouTube just doesn't really have as big of a draw for that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the idea there. And the draw is because we're not video game players. It can be fun and silly. We're just kind of mashing at buttons. Awesome, thank you, Masa. I will try to email you tomorrow. The ideal would be that folks can see us. Hey, Pete, thanks for joining us. I'm actually not going to be on much longer, but that's okay. Ideally, folks can watch us and watch the gameplay simultaneously. It's kind of a PewDiePie or Co-optitude approach, but I know that requires some significant video setup. Like that's well, I should say I don't know. I shouldn't say I know. From what I understand, that requires certain hardware. So we've got to figure out a way of doing that reasonably. If not, then I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we like to be us and video and gameplay simultaneous. And exactly, Kaiser German. We'd love to do both nostalgia games and newer games and kind of cover all that stuff. I've actually pitched to Evan the idea of doing a comic book show where we just start reading comics. We just go to the comic book store and just buy stuff that looks interesting and just start reading it and talking about it. Kind of like Smoke and Mirrors. And, and approach it from the perspective of we don't know what we're talking about, but we're just going to dive in. And I think that'd be kind of fun. But again, that would require time and money and such. So not a lot of money, but it would require an extra couple hours per week. So we're not jumping into that just now. But that's the kind of stuff we'd like to do, especially with a video game show. So thanks. That's interesting. Interesting thoughts. Yeah, it would probably be Twitch for that. Yes, we've got those. I don't think what else. Anything else to mention in terms of upcoming show stuff? We are working on more tech stuff. So we actually walked through some stuff for a show about the Raspberry Pi and setting up a Raspberry Pi as a computer, like a desktop computer. So that would, I like to do kind of a series of how-to videos about that kind of thing, like buying a Raspberry Pi and using it for various things. So that's something we're more actively pursuing as a series of videos. If we do that, that would probably be presented a little differently. So it doesn't make as much sense to post a bunch of 45-minute YouTube videos about how to set these things up, and you can't really chop that up too easily. So we're figuring out exactly how to present that and how to do it, and it's something that we might actually end up packaging up as some kind of course. So that is kind of the idea there. But that is something that's closer than some of the other ideas we've had for things like history of anime. Oh, I should also mention, we have also talked to somebody about doing this day in anime history segments. So we've got a friend of ours who is working on recording some video where she'll talk about some period of or some things that happened in anime history on given dates. So when a show premiered, birthdays of creators, things like that, and we can also dive deep into, relatively deep into those topics. So it's not just, and on June 3rd, Hideaki Anno was born. Next topic. But it'll kind of talk about each individual creator or series or person or whatever, and talk about why they're important and significant things, as well as stuff about actual like Japanese history. So we're working on that, and we're trying to get those done and recorded and put out there, because I think that'd be useful and helpful. They'd probably be segments on Horizons, but that is starting to coalesce. So, and in case you didn't notice on geekspectrum.org, I've got another 6 episodes of Culture Shock up there scheduled. So we have another, gosh, it goes way out there. Let me check right now. Yeah, so we have episodes of Culture Shock through August, like mid-August, ready to go and out there. So you should be seeing many more Culture Shock episodes. The next one is on Japanese school life, which will drop on Friday. Hello, Ivia Wolf. I'm actually going to be heading out in a few minutes here. So yeah, so Culture Shock is well established, and you'll be seeing a lot more of that stuff, which is nice and fun. We have lots of neat Japanese cultural stuff we talk about there. And again, each episode 7 to 10 minutes roughly. So that'll be pretty cool. Yeah, but yeah, and exactly as you were saying, Kaiser Derman, you know, a Patreon would absolutely help with that stuff, with being able to set up some of that tech stuff and such. So we are moving forward. This is one of the reasons why I'm working with Evan, is that between the two of us, we can get a lot more stuff scheduled and set up and done. He has a lot of that equipment, and also just he gets excited about stuff, I get excited about stuff, and we can kind of feed off each other's interests and knowledge. And by the way, Evan plays the newbie. He's quite knowledgeable. You know, there's a lot of times in the streams where he says, "What is that? I haven't heard of that before." He's heard of it before. He knows what I'm talking about, but he's kind of playing a role. So don't be too fooled, or don't be fooled by his apparent lack of knowledge. He knows what he's talking about. But that turns out to be an effective way for us to explain stuff and talk about that, because he can go, really? Why would they do that? That's interesting. So yeah, sorry, Avir Wolf. I would love to at some point set up a streaming video service so that I can have some kind of stream going more often, so that it's just kind of there and folks can tune in more often. I've actually thought about doing a more kind of a constant live streaming thing, because it'd be fun to talk to you guys more often. But YouTube Live doesn't really make that convenient, because they only last for 8 hours, so it's kind of hard. Yeah, Masa, Smoke and Mirrors was a really fun title, and we really loved it until the first time that I had to text Evan and say, "So, are you coming over Friday for S&M?" He was like, "Oh, that's not good. That cannot be on our phones. We just, you know." So, yeah, that's not the best abbreviation. We started calling it SAM, you know, as an abbreviation. Just then again, you know, that becomes, "Are you coming over for Sam?" Who's Sam? But yeah, S&M is a bit of a. So yeah, because this is always fun to chat with you guys. So it would actually kind of be interesting to do some kind of, you know, I'm on evenings just kind of to hang out. I don't know. I might do that. We'll see. Just kind of live stream, just to live stream, and folks can stop by or not if desired. Maybe. Okay. So do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Like I said, I want to get to bed here fairly soon. No pressure or anything, but yeah, Sam is the guy doing the S&M. That's good. Yeah, we're trying to bring more stuff to you. But thanks for asking about the Patreon, because we need kind of a swift kick in the rear to move forward on that. So I'm actually going to set up a card, a reminder card here, to set up Geek Spectrum Patreon. And we might just set it up and put it out there, and then develop backer levels as time goes on. Please get it out there. So the origin of Smoke and Mirrors is that we came up with the acronym, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like SMOK was the acronym for what we were talking about. And so we did that, and then we said smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors is a nice name. At least that's the story I got. Yeah, I'm going to be leaving here in a few minutes. So if you guys have any questions or thoughts or whatever, I will gladly talk about them. Otherwise, I will. And you can hear my voice starting to drop. I'm here to answer questions and make games. This is actually I'm building a little tabletop game based on Mad Max Fury Road. So it's a little tabletop game of a rig going across the desert and other vehicles around it, and people jumping back and forth and shooting each other. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll be heading out in about 7 minutes, Pete. I'm hoping the anime shelf will not make an appearance next episode, but it may. You never know how tech will treat you. But that was weird. Yeah, we went back and looked at the stream, and for some reason the video camera just decided to stop responding, and it came back when we tried to when we reconnected to it, but it just it kicked the computer off the webcam basically, and so it reverted back to the onboard webcam as opposed to the webcam we have set up. So yeah. Oh, so maybe the shelf will be our third character. We should do more about the shelf. He has a neat collection of anime. Actually, it would be fun to walk through his shelves at some point. Pete's in June 22nd. Wow, Pete's a time traveler. He's from the future. Quick, guys, ask Pete what the future is like. What's it like a couple weeks in the future? Do we have hover cars yet? Personal jetpacks? Online privacy? Oh, I see. You're heading to California June 22nd. That explains it. We did not find we did not nail down the problem with the camera. We did notice that the cables were a little loose. Not loose in the sense that they were like disconnected or anything, but they were not super well connected. So it was not the best connection job. And that was both of our faults. We were hooking it together, and one of us didn't hook it up well. So hopefully that was it. We will see. And again, this is part of figuring out all of this this tech stuff. So every week we try to make it a little better. and we try to nail down something. Unfortunately, the past few weeks we've had it's been one of those kind of one step forward, two steps back situations. But I think with the new RAM, it'll be a lot better. So that should at least make that PC much more stable and much faster. So a lot of the other intermittent problems we've been having should be resolved with that. That is the plan. That is the hope, and we will see that. So the other nice thing is that after Friday, then we're back on Tuesday, so we can kind of make our changes more quickly. But and to give you guys an idea of how much we're doing stuff, Evan and I spent something like 35 hours together last week. Recording video, talking about things, doing episodes, interviewing stuff, or I'm not interviewing people, but talking to people about interviews. So yeah, we're spending a lot of time trying to get this moving forward. There are actually a lot of Japanese tabletop role-playing games. There are many of them. There's actually a Concoli tabletop RPG. Kantai Collection tabletop RPG, and there are many others. A few have been translated into English. There's Ryutama, Made the RPG, and others. But there are a lot of tabletop RPGs in Japan. But yes, and Sword World is a great example. It was actually Lodoss War was a D&D campaign that was then converted into Sword World, which was this sort of custom role-playing system. My favorite game genres, video game genres. Neither of us play video games. But when we did play video games, mine were graphic adventure games. And I like Space Combat Simulator. Well, I like the X-Wing games. Those are some of my, my gosh, I played those a lot. So, I like those. I didn't play a lot of other games within that genre, really. But yeah, graphic adventure games, some puzzle games, and then just a kind of a smattering of other stuff were really my bread and butter. For Evan, I don't know. I do know he liked graphic adventure games, but I don't recall what his real favorite genres were. We will find out, I guess, when we do the video game show. Nice. I was in Chinatown in San Francisco just a few months ago, which was nice. So yeah, actually, I might hook up the Rift and do a little playing around with some of these Rift games, because there's a very impressive Oculus Rift space combat sim. It's not EVE Online. It's another game. They demoed EVE Online with the Rift, but this is a different one. That's a lot of fun. It's a great example of what the Oculus Rift is good for. So I might do that. I'm playing around with some other games. Unfortunately, now they've announced that the Oculus Rift will no longer support the Mac. I may be getting out of the whole Oculus Rift thing. If they actually come out with a consumer version fairly soon and there's no Mac support, if the Mac support dies, and they remove it even for like the DK2 stuff, which is the version of the Rift I have now, I may end up selling this Oculus Rift. It just doesn't make sense to keep it around, which means it might make sense for me to sell it soon, because there's no point in my selling it when it's worthless. Got to make that decision as to what I'm going to do with the DK2. It's awesome, but again, how useful is it when I won't be able to use it at all unless I spend $1,000 on a high-end rig for that. You are right, Pete. Time is up.
So, favorite wall scroll, if you have any, I have a wall scroll of from Rurouni Kenshin. It is from Rurouni Kenshin OVA, and it is of Kenshin himself holding holding second. Tomoe. So it's Kenshin holding Tomoe in the snow with a blade behind them. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. And it's one of those things where you look at it and it looks like, oh, that's a nice, samurai piece of art. And if you know Kenshin, you know what's going on in that moment. It's like, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna head out. Thank you all very much. Appreciate that. And yep, Saito is awesome. And good night. Thank you all very much for joining me again. This Friday we'll be doing Smoke and Mirrors, Haruhi Suzumiya, second episode broadcast order, so the first episode of the show, and then Yamada's episode 8. So that is the plan, and we'll be doing Horizons the News show. So thank you all very much. Take care, and see you in a couple of days. Bye.